and welcome to the channel. Many of you guys have been asking me to start doing a YouTube and a daily vlog. Well, you know what? I decided we're gonna do that. I'm in my garage right now and it is an absolute disaster, all right? But it's the only place I have to film. The kids are in bed. So many of you guys want to know how I got my start. How did I get into trucking? How did I get my CDL? Well, let's take you back to about year 2008. So, in 2008, I moved to Nevada. After graduating late from high school, I failed my last year in English, and I ended up having to do the adult ed class. And it was a 3-month course, and I did it in a month. Got my diploma, thank the Lord. And I was just working some dead-end jobs, not doing too good, and not being the best me that I could be. And it came down to an ultimatum. And long story short, my mom lived up here in Nevada, and I decided to come live up here. Well, I was kind of kicked out of the nest, let's say. But with that being said, how did I end up driving truck? Well, I worked a few more bullshit jobs here and there to make some money. And then a family friend told me, hey, why don't you go work for NDOT as a summer aide? I was thinking, oh, cool, be a good, 3-month gig, whatever. I could figure it out after that, no big deal. Well, I started working summer aide and I started putting 2 and 2 together. Okay, then they told me, hey, they usually hire a couple of the summer aides. Well, I started looking through the job descriptions on the Nevada PERS or Nevada State Job Board or whatever it's called. And I seen on there that one of the requirements was to have your CDL. So I started doing some research. I had no idea. I didn't even know what a CDL was at this point. I was like, CDL, I looked it up. It said commercial driver's license and it explained everything. And I was like, okay, that's kind of neat, whatever. I guess I could do that. So here's how I did it. We had over 15 people apply from the summer aid, plus other outside people apply for these jobs. I went down and got my CDL physical. It cost me $100. After I got that, I went down to the DMV. Of course, after studying and taking all the practice tests, I actually went and got my Class B permit. I tried for my Class A, but I kept failing the trailer section. And it was coming down to crunch time. We had interviews in a week, and if I failed the test, I thought I would have to wait a certain amount of time in order to retake the test, and I couldn't do that. So on the very last try, I skipped the trailer section. I did air brakes and the other one, and I just got my Class B permit. So next week, a week goes by, and I go and I do my interview. And I walk into a room, and they literally have a table in front of me and down the sides, and I have to stand in front of all these people, and they're asking me questions. They're asking me what kind of equipment I've run, what did I learn, who did I work for, and then at the end they say, why should we hire you over anyone else? So I reached into my pocket and I said, look at this, and they said, what is that? And I handed it to the first guy to my right, and he goes, you got your Class B permit. Holy moly. So they passed it around and looked at that, and I told them the story. I said, look, I went and I did my research. I went and took the test. All I have to do is do the one other test on the written, and I can get my Class A permit. And they said, well, that won't be no problem. And I told them I'm actually having an appointment in 2 more days to go do that. And they passed it around. They looked at it, and after... long story short, they called me the next day and said I had the full-time job. So I go through all the stuff. I go do all the paperwork. Of course, I had to do another UA and background check, and I had to submit a driver history check and all kinds of stuff. So at this point, I have my Class A permit. I went back and redid the test for like the 8th time, and I got my Class A permit, okay? And I didn't have any endorsements at that point other than the air brakes. Or just a normal Class A, so you could haul the trailer. So they give you 6 months to get your CDL. I focused intensely. For the first month I was there, I told them I don't want to do anything but focus on trying to get my CDL. And they trained me in a 10-wheeler dump truck with a pintle hitch trailer. And if you don't know what that is, it's not a fifth wheel and it's not a ball hitch. It's actually like the trailer has a circle and then the truck has a clamp, and that's how they do this. Okay, they're a very solid kind of hitch or whatever you want to call it. They make a little bit of noise when you take off and stop and go around corners. You get used to it, it's whatever. It was actually really hard to learn how to do the skills test in that setup with the 10-wheeler dump truck and the 3-axle pintle hitch tilt deck trailer. And it's because the axles are so close to the truck, they're almost center under. So you got your trailer here and the axles are like center. So when you're backing up, the trailer just wants to do the wiggly wag. And I focused and when they set the cones up in the yard, like almost every other day I was doing this, I was driving. And the hardest thing I had to do, now I got taught by a state entity, like Nevada Department of Transportation trained me. So there was no faking the double clutching, there was no nothing. They told me I'm doing it by the book. The hardest thing for me to learn was actually how to double clutch. Now, a lot of you guys are going to be like, oh, just fake it. Yeah, if you're going through some of these other means like trucking schools and whatever, you can fake it. You can do, now that I know how to drive a manual and I've been doing it for so long, I could fake double clutching and y'all would never even know. But at the time, I learned it, and it's something that stuck with me. I know how to do it. I can show others how to do it. I'm glad I learned. It's not something practical in the real world you use. Heavy hauling, you will use it at points when you have super heavy loads. It'll be a whole nother story on that. So long story short, I focused on it, I did it, I got everything down except the double clutching, and it wasn't like the second to last day before my test was scheduled that I actually got the double clutching down. So what happens now? So they took me to my test at the DMV. I went and talked to the lady, she came out, she looked at all the credentials, she saw that I did the written test, she checked the insurance, the registration. Obviously, we worked for the state, so she knew we had all our stuff. And then, you guys have to bear with me. It has been so long. I'm going to try to recount this the best I can. You go do the skills test first. So you got your pre-trip and all that stuff. You park, you pull it around the back of the DMV, and you wait for her or him. And I can't remember. The first thing they're gonna do, like I said, they're gonna check all your lights. You're gonna do like your pre-trip stuff, and part of that is your air brake test. And you have to remember how to do it. It's different for combination vehicles, and you have to remember all this stuff. Like you have to build your air up. You'll have to build your air up, turn the vehicle off, turn the key to the on position. You'll have to apply like 70 to 90 pounds of pressure and hold it steady for up to like 60 seconds. Something like that. And you have to watch your needle gauge. If you have just a straight truck, it can't drop X amount of PSI within so many seconds. And if you have a trailer, a single trailer, it can't drop X amount of PSI in so many seconds. And it changes if you have triples and all that. So they're going to make you run through all like the air brake tests and everything. They're going to ask you all kinds of questions. And on your pre-trip, there are so many things in the book you have to list the best way to do it. If you can't memorize every single thing that the book says, just start pointing out everything. Is it properly mounted, secured, and functioning? Is it loose? Is it leaking? Every single bolt you can see with your hand, you want to grab. You want to crawl under the truck, grab the drive line. You want to put your hand on every single lug nut. You want to tell them you're looking for streaks of rust. You want to tell them you're looking at the drums to make sure they're not cracked. You want to look at the brakes and make sure nothing's cammed over. You have to check the oil, the antifreeze, the belts, the hoses. And 9 times out of 10, the instructor's going to look at you after you've named about 10,000 things and say, okay, you're good. Let's move on to the next thing. And don't forget about your trailer and your lights. And to me, the pre-trip was the hardest part because that's the part that made me the most nervous. It's your first time really doing it, and you have your drive test is hanging over your head, and you're like, man, if I mess this up, I'm not even going to get to drive, and blah, 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 and all this stuff is running through your head. And it really just makes it intense. So you get through all that where you check out the truck, you make sure your lights work, you have all your documentation, your windshield's not cracked, your horns work, your wipers, your washer fluid, like everything has to be checked. And you got to remember, this is the only time you're ever going to have to do it like this, because in the real world, this is not how it works. Okay? So, and then you move on to your skills test. And you have to, so they're going to have all these cones set up, and you're going to have to do the blind alley dock. You're going to have to back so many feet in a straight line. You're going to have to demonstrate parallel parking with a trailer. And they have all these cones. You're going to have to zoom in and out of some cones, and everything's like first gear kind of stuff. Nothing's crazy. I don't know what happened on my skills test, but I bombed it. I don't know how I passed it. I don't know if it's because she felt bad for me. Maybe I actually did pass it, but in my head, I thought I failed it. Trying to do that with the pintle hitch, with the axle so close to the truck in a dump truck, completely jacked me up, guys. Most of you guys will be in a single cab semi with the absolute shortest possible distance. Like the trucking schools have it down. They know exactly what size truck you need. So they're going to give you the most minimal setup you can to make it easy, like the less gears. And that's how they're going to teach you. They got this down. They know what you need to do, and you just need to trust them if that's the route you go, and listen to them. So anyways, I'm pretty sure in my head I bombed this. She goes, okay, let's move on to the next. And she didn't tell me whether I passed or failed. So we go do the driving thing, right? And the dump truck I was driving had a warped flywheel. Okay, and what is that? Or a pressure plate or something on it. So on the engine, you have the part that spins with a flat plate, and then you have your clutch. And when you let your clutch out and the clutch engages with that plate, you're supposed to take off smoothly. Well, when the plate is warped, it causes hop. I got dinged on that, and they're different. I don't know at the time. I was pretty damn new, and I ran over the curb on the way out of the DMV, and I was like, "Oh, great!" So we do our thing, and I'm not kidding you guys. I passed with 1 point to spare. One more ding, and I would have had to redo my drive test. Like, it was the most intense moment of my life. It was insane. It was crazy. And they don't tell you like right away, especially this lady, and it was driving me crazy. And we're walking up, and she's toweling stuff up, and she goes, "Man, you barely made it. One more point, one more dock, and you'd have been coming back." I was so freaking happy. I got my CDL. The best part ever is when you get your CDL, for me anyways, was driving that truck back to the state yard by myself. That was the best feeling in the world. And so this is all back in 2008, and it was October. I got hired in September 2008. I got my CDL in October 2008. It took me exactly 30 or 31 days to get my CDL, and I had it, and man, it was all uphill from there. I was learning new stuff, doing all kinds of stuff, and the best part for me, I got to learn how to drive plowing snow. So that means I got to drive in the wintertime. I got my first year ever, I got to learn how to drive in the snow. Every time I almost drove was in the snow. And that's how I got to be so good driving without chains. Now, nobody's too good for chains. That's a story for another time. But that is how I got my start. I started damn near in the dead of winter when I got my CDL and had to learn to plow snow. So if you're thinking about going and getting your CDL and working for a state department and you want to plow snow like me, it's absolutely fun, but it's nerve-wracking because you have this 10-wheeler or a 6-wheeler, and out where I'm at, you have to do the fog line, which is if you're driving down the road in your lane, it's that white lane on the shoulder right here. And you got to keep your plow like that far over. And to do that, you have to keep your front tire right on that fog line. Now, out in the 2-lane roads and the crew I worked on, there was no shoulder. You had the white line and then a drop off. Well, not a drop off. It was about like this in some places. In some places it was rutted out. So you're driving your snow plow along, right? And you have it on that white line and your tire slips off the pavement right there. And you can turn your wheel to the left and you're still riding that edge of the pavement either until the pavement and the ground smooth out and it comes back on. But I learned really, really quick. And if some of you plow drivers are watching this, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. You bump that plow up, and that jolt puts that weight back to the front end, and it allows you to get back up on the road. But you can't turn the wheel too much, because it's like when you're in mud and you're trying to turn a semi around or your car and you have the wheel turn too much and you just keep going straight. It works better if you just turn your wheel a little bit, couple degrees one way or the other, and it'll gradually go the way you want it to go. Learning to drive in the snow was freaking amazing. I couldn't have asked for, like, 2008 was a horrendous year for snow. We got dumped on. I mean, it was insane. Every other night I was working plowing snow, and during the day I was doing all kinds of other road maintenance stuff, and that set it in stone for me. And from there, I worked for the state for, I don't know, like a year and a half, and then the economy collapsed and we started getting furloughs, and I just couldn't survive on it. I was living in a state yard, renting a state house, and I was young and I was irresponsible and I was immature. If I would have stayed with the state now, I probably would be making a lot of money and be in a pretty good spot. But at the time, I didn't have the right mentality to think, oh, I need to stay at a job for 30 years. If I could go back and tell my younger, dumber self, I'd probably do the same shit all over again. It was crazy. So I worked for the state for a year and a half, and then a buddy of mine that I met through another buddy got hired on at Duckwater Trucking. Okay, this company had side dumps and they did shotcrete. They hauled ore at the mines, and they offered me a job at $22 an hour, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. And I was like, what? I could not believe it. I was, what was I, 18, 19, 20? I don't even know if I was 20. I think I was 20 years old when I was working for Duckwater Trucking on the mine site. I thought $22 an hour was good money, especially after I was making 16 bucks an hour at the state. That's a huge increase, and that's when I got my first taste of mining and private industry. And from there, it became an addiction. And I don't mean like in a bad way. I mean like trucking became an addiction. Like the amount of money I was making. I was young, man. I don't even know what I did with all that money. We worked 6 days a week and still partied every night. It was insane. It was absolute insanity. Like making like $1,500 a week when I was that young, and the most I'd ever made in 2 weeks was like $1,200, and I was making more than that in a week. I couldn't freaking believe it. And that's what really made me stay into trucking, was at first the money, and then the passion and the love came in behind that. So I worked for Duckwater Trucking for a few years. I did the ore, I did shotcrete, stuff like that. Company went downhill. I tried hauling powder for a little bit. I didn't like the pneumatics. I was getting paid by the load. It was like $3.50 a load, which was all right. I didn't like doing it. I will not do it. It just was not my thing. Too much chaining and unchaining in the mud. You guys that do it in the city have it made. So I started doing the pneumatics. I did that for like 3 months. I went back to Duckwater. I rode it out for a few more months, and then the company went belly up. I ditched out right before they went belly up. And then I got into ready mix. So you want to make a lot of money and not even pull a trailer? Do ready mix. You make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, especially out in Texas and the windmill farms, New Mexico stuff. So I went to Silver State Rock from there, and I started running the rear mixers. They just got some more of the front discharge mixers. Those are the ones that have the drums that go up over your head, and they discharge out the front, and they have the hydraulic chutes that you control from in the cab. I learned how to do that. I did that for a few years. I ran dump truck. I did spreading. I ran crushers. I operated equipment. I became a batch man at that place. The last 6 months I was there, that was a pretty cool experience. And then, oh man, I went to another ready mix company, 3D Concrete, because they paid even more money per hour. And I started doing that for them, and it just got too repetitive. Ready mix is, if you want to get into ready mix, remember, it's going to be repetitive. It's going to be point A to point B, and you're going to be doing like, you're going to have a day where you're doing a load here, a load there, a load here, a load there, a load here, or you're going to have one job where you're going back and forth for like 20 hours. Like, it's insane the amount of concrete some of these mines use. So I went to work for 3D Concrete, and I just had to get out of it, so I went to work for Elko Sanitation. There I did the recycle route on a rapid loader on the. I did a rapid rail on the side. That's where the truck has an arm on the side, and instead of dumping way up here, it dumps in the middle. So the arm slides out on a rail, grabs a can, slides back, and just dumps like that. And then it has a big compactor like that, and it compacts it in there. And then I also had to use the rear load truck by myself to do all the alleys, because in the older part of the city you can't get a rapid rail. We tried. So I would have to drive up, I would have to stop, I would have to get these 2 cans in front, run them to the back, dump them. I would have to get the 4 cans that were in the back, dump those, put all the cans back, pull forward, and then do the next set. And man, I did 2 days a week I did this in this truck. It was ridiculous. I had enough of it. It was good insurance. It was $18 an hour, wasn't worth it. Didn't work enough hours. So I went to work for Thomas Petroleum. When they first started doing the side dumps, they hired me up. I worked for them for a few months. I was hauling the double side dumps, the big main side dump, and then the pup. We were hauling ore from one mine to the other. It was all right, but I'll tell you what, it's the same thing as ready mix. It's just the same thing day after day after day. And I just, that stuff is a definition of insanity for me. And if you're kind of had the mindset like me, if you watch my videos, you know how I am, my personality. If you're like that, stay away from those point A to point B jobs. Some of us like to go from here to there and do different stuff every day. That's how I roll. Some of us are okay doing that other stuff. And hey, it's different strokes for different folks. Whatever works for you, that's what makes you happy, then do it. Don't worry about what anyone else says. So I worked for Thomas Petroleum. Then some life-changing events happened. I'm not going to get into that. Ended up moving to California. I got hired on with CMEX USA as a batch manager. I was just making $18 an hour, not getting much overtime. I kind of started missing driving. And 7 months before we moved back to Nevada, I got on with Kern Asphalt, and that's where I got my first lowboy experience. So I started out driving a Super 10 dump truck. No, it was a 13-speed manual transmission, and it had the big tag axle on the back of the dump bed that comes down, and it had the 2 drop axles in the middle plus the 2 drive axles and the steer. This thing could hold like 24, 25, 26 tons. And it was a lot better than the transfer trucks because I didn't have to get out and switch trailers around, and I could actually haul more tons throughout the day than them guys did. I would have to do more loads, but it was way more efficient. And you're driving down the road, and those California 2-lane roads, you have all this weight up here in your bed, and you have all these airbags, and sometimes the truck just starts doing this, and you have to slow down. Man, it was a weird feeling. But they put me on it because I used to run cement mixer, and I had a good idea about the center of gravity and how all that stuff works. So I worked for them for 7 months, and the last 2 months before I quit, one of the guys there, his mom was sick and he had to take some time off. I was the only one with a Class A there. So they put me on their transport truck on a 3-axle Murray. That's where I learned how to load over the back. I load pavers, I load skip loaders, I load bobcats, I loaded dump trucks, water trucks. I mean, you name it. The big old pavement grinders, and I did that for 2 months, and that's what I'm telling you guys. That's how I got my break into low bedding. That's what I found out. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do, and I made my mind up. It didn't click right at first. We moved back to Nevada, and I just called Job 3D Concrete, and I said, hey, I'm moving back. Would you guys hire me back? I filled out the app. They hired me up. And I started doing it again. I was like, man, I don't want to get back into concrete. Home, and I saw all these trucks in the yard. I was on I-80 coming into Elko, and I looked over to my right, and I said, hey, that's like the trailer I used at Kern Asphalt. I'm going to go talk to those guys. So I got off, and I went all the way back, and I talked to them guys, and I said, hey, this is all the experience I have, and I told them everything I'd done, and this and that, and the trailers and everything that I use. They hired me on the spot. The next day, they put me in a truck before my piss test and background came back. And I started for them. My first load ever. I was in a day cab truck with a flatbed, and I had some rolls of HDPE pipe, and I did not know how to use. Oh, man, I had some rolls. So my first load ever with them guys was some rolls of HDPE pipe. And I did not know how to secure this stuff. I didn't know how to use stakes. I didn't know how to use chains. I didn't know how. Well, I knew how to use chains because I worked for the state, but I didn't know how to use the straps. I didn't even know what a winch bar was. So I took the 3/8 chains and I used the chains to tie this stuff down. When I showed up to deliver, these guys were laughing at me. Like, usually the driver just throws a couple straps over it. And I was like, I don't know how to use this stuff. I just started with these guys. But that's where it all started, with the heavy haul and the low blowing and everything. And that'll be a story for next time, because it's already getting like 26 minutes and I don't know if all y'all are gonna watch this, but you guys wanted this, so here it is. That is how I got my start. That is how heavy haul and full that is how I became heavy haul and full. When I started work at Elevation Transport, and those guys trained me. If you watch my TikToks, you know that when I left there was a lot of bad blood on both sides. And I know those guys don't hate me, and I truly don't hate them. It's just how it is in the trucking industry. They put a lot of time and effort into me, and they trained me. So you got to imagine, when I left, it was a bad blow to them. And as time went on, I kind of realized that, and I'm hoping one day everyone gets over that. And I don't want to harbor any past feelings of ill or anything like that. But the truth is, I'm out here doing what I want to do. I'm making money. I'm supporting my family. We're doing big things. I'm on a 5-year plan to make sure all my debt's paid off and that we can go build a house somewhere. So I'm going to start posting videos like this once a week. So just pay attention. Like this is my YouTube channel. It's going to get better. I'm going to learn how to edit. It's going to be on the up and up, guys. I'm going to design backgrounds. This is going to be like a studio. We're doing this. I'm invested. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to share my experience and my trials and tribulations with you guys. And I want to show you guys what I went through, and the heartache and the good and the bad and the ugly, just everything as it was. I want to share with you guys and let you know. I want to tell you all the stuff that nobody tells you when you want to become a trucker, when you want to do this. Like, I've seen so many different things. I've talked to so many different people. I've seen all the different industries. I've been in this since 2008, and I've done a lot of stuff. I have a lot of opinions. I've had a lot of people telling me stuff. And I'm going to share all that with you guys. And I appreciate every single one of you guys that joined and found me on TikTok and came over here. And if you watched most of this video or whatever, you made it to the end, I thank you. I freaking thank you guys. You guys want to get a shirt? I'm going to leave the links in the description below. I'm selling them at cost right now. So this whole first round of shirts is going to be at cost. I'm working on getting a whole department of merch set up. And just so you know, anything that becomes the sales of the merch, of the shirts, of hats, anything I have is going to the channel. Any money that I make, any money that you guys buy and like contribute to is going to the channel. I'm investing 100% into the channel. And I'm going to do some great things. I'm talking with some great people. My TikTok is insane. I'm just glad I'm able to have the reach. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. Look forward to my next video next week, and we'll talk some more on trucking. This is Heavy Haul and Full. Welcome to my channel, and thanks again for watching, guys. Peace out.